we'll just do it with one take from here. So the best way to really understand the 185 division right now is exactly as how it follows. You have Izzy on top, and then you have a bunch of other guys on the bottom that he's either fought or have fought themselves within the range of the top 8. You have Sean Strickland, who recently just won last night against an unranked opponent. And why is that? Because there's just not a lot of guys that were willing to take that fight against him. Now, with Sean, this guy is willing to take fights at any given minutes of notice and will even go out and fight Alex Bahera again, which, by the way, he's actually sparred with him prior to this matchup he had with Abus during this weekend's fight. Now, the way that Sean Strickland is built, it's like as if he's going to continue fighting with very minimal damage, which really surprised me because he used a lot of great Philly shell defensive boxing techniques and really fought in that similar type of pace in a boxing setting. And what do I mean by that? If you guys ever watched professional boxing in comparison to the boxing that you would see used in MMA with slick jabs and the things that Max Holloway does or the things that Conor McGregor has done with the likes of, let's say, Eddie Alvarez, the difference with that in boxing is the amount of patience that you have to endure. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're a top level world championship boxer, you have to be jab heavy. And when you're jab heavy, you're able to control the range, you're able to control the shots, you're able to control the pace of the fight. And what we have going on with Sean Strickland is exactly something similar to that in a boxing pace. Whereas, let's say, the likes of Khabib Nurmagomedov or the likes of Khamzat or even the likes of Robert Whittaker or GSP may fight a little bit more of an explosive side or use a lot of powerful movements to try to negotiate their tactics against their opponents. Like, for example, GSP would try to play the opposite game, meaning that if you are a world level wrestler with the likes of Josh Koscheck, what was he going to do with you? He was going to jab your face in. That's exactly what he did in that fight. And then when you have the likes of, let's say, a striking-centric fighter such as Dan Hardy, what was he going to do with him? Well, he took him down to the ground over and over again and had several submission attempts in which he was trying to rip his arm off, and to the credit of Dan Hardy, was able to get out of it. So that type of pace is relentless. It's also very taxing, but it's also the reason why a lot of guys will cut their careers short. And rightfully so. This is what you see with Khabib Nurmagomedov. He knew that the type of style he had going on was very fast-paced heavy, in which that it was only going to be conducive for a younger fighter that can recover a lot better than, let's say, somebody who's of a latter stage of their career, or somebody a little bit older, or somebody that had miles in their clock, or all of the above. Now, not to get off track with the 185 division of the UFC, but I wanted you guys to understand the pace that Sean Strickland sets in a fight. What it is it's a very monotone pace, meaning that he keeps a certain pace in which it is no different than what he does in a sparring match. And you've heard McGregor say this over and over again, where he mentioned something to the effect of, well, I treat it like a sparring match, mate. I go out there and I just feel the moment and I just this and that. You know, that's basically the way that he describes it, is a sparring match. When he went into the Donald Cerrone fight in 2020, how did he describe it? A sparring match. He described it as nonchalantly and just going in, doing whatever it is that he does on a daily basis. Now, the way that Sean Strickland fights, that's exactly how he went about this fight. Another sparring session. You want to know why? Because the way that he spars and the way that he trains is exactly just that. I don't think Sean Strickland does any circuit training or weight training or anything like that. And by the way, if you guys would like to check out what MMA conditioning, strength, workouts and circuits are going to be like, I suggest you take a look at the next video I'm about to post, something I recorded off of the gym, just to give you guys an idea of what it is and what it means to train in a functional manner. Very similar to what Kyle Dake, the four-time weight NCAA champion, does in his workouts. He does what you call functional patterns. And what it is that you do workouts that are specifically to the effect of the sport that you are doing. So in other words, if you're doing, let's say, bench presses or military press or anything to that effect, you got to ask yourself, where and when are you going to use these movements, and how are they going to improve your explosiveness? How are they going to make you a lot stronger? How are they going to make you a lot more effective in the techniques that you're trying to employ? So these are the type of workouts that address that. Now with Sean Strickland, he does absolutely none of that. What he does is he goes into a gym, spars with guys, and barely even hits the bag. Maybe he hits the bag a few times, but most of his workouts are nothing but sparring. And how many rounds of that does that consist of? Well, only he knows and only his training partners know. But you also know that he trains in Extreme Couture, which means that they're also a team that can kind of hone him back to having, let's say, more of a mature and a professional training method or a training schedule to what he has to do. But nonetheless, Sean does what he does, and he becomes great at it, and it's the reason why he has great timing in his shots. And during his fights, you see that going on. It's like he mentions his fist being a pitter-patter. He says that he hits like a girl. Very self-aware in the way that he describes himself, right? Because he's kind of right in a way, look, if you don't train in the kind of functional matter that increases your speed, increases your punching power, increases your explosivity in terms of how you're going to react when punches are thrown at you, or how you're going to react on the offense, or how to switch up from offense to defense, you're not going to be able to translate that in a fight. A bench press, the amount of pull-ups that you can do, the amount of chin-ups that you can do, or even the amount of squats that you can do can really means squat diddly in the actual match in and of itself, when you're not training with full functional patterns of the movement that you're going to have to get used to in a fight or in a combat setting. So with Sean Strickland, he does something similar to that in terms of actually going in there in a live fire. That's literally how he trains and how you describe it. It's an absolute live fire. He just goes in there and goes for broke with whoever, and then that's what he does. That's how he fights, but it's effective at the same time. You also got to wonder the longevity of the actual method itself. So what we have with Israel Adesanya, he is the guy that is ruling the 185 division right now. So is that a problem? In a way, yes, because he's already beaten the likes of the number one guy right now, which is Alex Pereira. What is he going to do? This guy's going to move up 205 or maybe even heavyweight. He's currently walking around at 230 right now, and for him to make 185 would be an absolute drag and would be very hard on his body once again in the long term of his career. Now with Robert Whittaker, he's at number 2 right now. He's about to fight Dricus du Plessis in this coming weekend, which is going to determine if Dricus du Plessis is going to earn the title shot against Izzy. Because guess what? Him and Izzy got a great storyline going on. You got a white South African guy who's moving up the ranks, the type of region in South Africa in which the UFC is trying to market another global stage. And then on top of the fact that Israel Adesanya is already a global brand and a global product in and of himself in the current time of being a world champion and being an icon of the sport in the current moment of time. And it's going to be a big fight. The implications and the storyline has a great feel to it, will be promoted heavily in different regions of the world, including the regions that already have MMA, such as America, Brazil, and Japan, and Europe, and etc., etc. Now, with Paulo Costa, once again, he's still in the mix, number 5. He already fought Izzy. Marvin Vettori, he already fought him. Jack Hermanson, he's lost a few times, had a few of his chances moving up the ranks, but just couldn't crack the top 5. Brendan Allen is on his way up. Kelvin Gastelum has been in there with Izzy, but is still up there in his latter stage of his career right now. Nasruddin Imavov fell down a few times, took a loss, still in the top 15. And then there's Andre Muniz and Chris Curtis in the mix of the last top of the 15. So that's literally what's going on in the state of the 185 division right now. Once again, they're going to have to create a lot of creative matches at the same time. A lot of these guys that have the big names like Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis, the 2 guys that would be the absolute great white hope opponent for Izzy, they got to do their part. and that is win. Sean did his part yesterday, took that W. Now Dricus du Plessis has a hard task ahead of him in UFC 290. Will he be able to do it? You got to find out this weekend. That's why they call it the theater of the unknown. Enjoy the fights.